thread would help. Looks like it's plenty solid. I think it's going to work fine. Happy birthday, Ryan. Been a long project, but I really learned a lot. This design here is going to work okay. Might want to change a few things, but that'll give me time on the next one. Oh yeah, there's going to be a next one. Mine's the next one. Plenty solid. All bolted together. No wiggle, no shake. I think it's going to be really, really nice. And since it's modular, he can move it to his house, put it in the basement. If he decides he wants to have it out in the garage instead, he'll be able to pick the top off. He's a lot younger and stronger than me. And carry the top out there, take the base apart, lift it up the stairway, piece of cake. The tenon on this leg is set in so that the back edge of it is 3 inches from the edge of the leg. That way when I put the two 2x4s on, which are 1.5 inches thick, it leaves this, the front of this bench flush to the leg. Same thing with the tenon on this one. Once again, 3 inches to the inside edge of the tenon. That leaves the face of the bench flush. I left this backside without a tenon on it, and that was the mistake I made. I originally intended to have a tenon on this leg going this direction. That was supposed to help keep it from racking. But when I put this leg together, this leg assembly, I ended up with a tenon going this way and a tenon going that way. Tenon going this way on this back leg and a tenon going this way on the front leg. Front leg was right, back leg was wrong. I cut it off. I could have trimmed it down to a peg so that it was narrow enough to make a tenon going through there. But I thought, you know what? I think the design's robust enough it doesn't need it. And it appears to be true, because it's not wiggling at all. It's very, very solid. The offset on the back, because of the width of the bench top, is 24 inches and the base is 22. There's about a 2-inch offset on the back edge. Not necessary for anything other than I wanted to leave a offset back there. If you wanted to put a tail vise on this bench, you'd put the tail vise on this end, and to make that work, it would require either chopping through the leg right there or having the leg moved in. I've seen a lot of them with the leg moved in, and I went that way. Didn't want to spend the time if Ryan later decides he wants to have a end vise on it, trying to chop through that leg and make room for it. Also, the cool thing is, if he does decide to make an end vise, we can just lift the top off, flip it over, set it right on the base, and do all the work right here on the bench. Having a bench is one of the most important tools that you can have when you're doing woodworking. Sawhorses, as you've seen when I was trying to cut the other pieces for this bench, are shaky at best. They're also awkward because you have to bend over a lot. Not bad for sawing, but for planing or chopping a mortise or cutting a dovetail, it puts you in an awkward position being stooped over all the time. I made this bench a little high, and I left the legs with the base of the stringers at 6 inches above the floor, thinking that this bench might need to be trimmed down in the future. Ryan may decide that this bench is a little too tall for him. It's a lot easier to cut it a little bit off than it is to add more on. But I set the top of the bench right at my knuckles. That way, if I'm working on this and my wrist is in a normal position, most of the time I'm going to be working on something with a thickness to it. I'll be able to work on that part with my hands right here, right at the end of the end of my normal reach, instead of having to bend over to get down to it or hold my arms up in the air like this. This vise was a found part. If I didn't have it, I had a screw that I was going to use anyways, but I found this vise all set up and decided to use it. Now, having to make a chop wouldn't have been a big deal. It's basically just a piece of oak. This one happens to be about 8 inches wide. It was a nice piece of oak, plenty solid. And it was strong enough and in good enough shape that I thought we can just use that one. It adds a little bit of antique flair to it and kind of goes in with the old tools. Does need to have the thread polished up. I can see putting this in and out that thread is going to drag a lot. So I'll probably pull the screw out of the thing and polish that up with a wire brush and get that cleaned up and put some wax on it. Don't want to put any grease on it. You'll end up with grease on everything. But wax doesn't transfer very well, and if I use beeswax, it works a charm with shellac or anything else. It just blends right in. So that's what I intend to do. The handle, we'll see how that holds up. If it works, good. If not, that's okay too. I put 2 bolts on the 6-inch leg, offset a little bit from each other. Top stringer and bottom stringer. On the standard leg, I just put 2 bolts in, one above the other, so that they weren't in line on the 2x4. That way there's not as much likelihood of it splitting. The T-nuts that I used are made by Midwest Fastener Corporation. This box is 20 years old. I don't even know if Midwest Fastener Corporation is still in existence. They're called quarter 20 pronged T-nuts. They come in different sizes. They look like that. Bolts that hold the top on are 3 inches long. The bolts that hold the stringers on are 6 inches long. That gives them just enough length to go through a 4x6 and a 2x4 and allow this T-nut to be threaded on there so I can drive it in. 16 2x4s across the top of that thing. I bought 18 2x4s knowing that I would need some for the stringers and the cross pieces. I actually thought about making the top wide enough that I would have the other 2x4s on the back edge, because I had some short pieces that I was pretty sure I could make the stringers out of. But I think it worked out well with just the 24-inch top. Get it too big, it makes it very difficult to reach anything on the back edge of the bench. This way, standing here, my arm will reach to the back of the bench without leaning over a whole lot. The threaded rod and the vise, that's 5/8 threaded rod, and it's 1 foot long. I put 3 nuts on it, 2, 1 on either side of the chop, and then 1 on the inside to act as the adjuster. We may find later that it'd be better to put a larger diameter wheel on that so that it's an easier thing to grab a hold of. But as long as it spins freely, I don't think there should be any problem. The holes in the legs, I went 1 inch down from the top, 1 inch up from the bottom. That left 1.5 inches in between the bolt holes. This one is 1 inch up from the base. The tenon on the inside is 1 3/4. That puts it up just above the middle. That gave it a good grip into that tenon. The tenon is exactly the width of the 4x4, 3.5 inches, so that it filled that pocket completely. Even without the bolts in there, it doesn't move. Same idea over here. 1 inch up from the 2x4, 1 inch down from the 2x4, 1.5 inches in between them, 1.5 inches in between, 2 inches in between these 2 holes. I didn't want to put the tenon, I did not want to put a T-nut or a hole into this end of the tenon because it's not supported. So I left the 2 fasteners into the solid part of the tenon. No bolts, no hold downs in the back. It's not going to go anywhere. It's plenty solid. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like the video, please click the like. If you want to, you can subscribe and see all of the videos that I've put onto the internet. I think I'm up to, by the time this one's done, I should be up around 110, 112. So, a lot of stuff there. Thanks.